On today's episode, I'll be talking about my new whips, including a new handspun whip, as well as a finished handspun project. Hey everyone, I'm Marina, and this is Pineapple Knits. This is my channel dedicated to knitting, spinning, and weaving. You can connect with me on social media at Pineapple Yarn, and you can connect with me on my website at pineappleyarn.com. Thank you so much for joining me again this week, and if this is your first time viewing this channel, welcome. I'm so happy you're here. I'm coming to you from coastal South Carolina, where finally we've had a sunny day. It's just so funny how quickly the weather changes. This whole week has been rain, 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 which we have desperately needed, so I'm super happy about that. But we finally did have a sunny morning, which is right now it's super sunny and kind of drying up from all that rain, but it was starting to get a little crispy here, which is very unusual. It's usually very green, and so it's just nice that the rain has come and taken care of my poor garden and my plants and everything, because it was starting to suffer a little bit. Today I'm drinking some mango passionfruit tea from Stash. I am pretty sure I drank this either on the last episode or maybe 2 episodes ago. It's delicious though, it's so good. And so that's what I'm drinking today. Okay, let's get started. I had finished my Dianella wrap last week, and so it was time to cast on something new. So I cast on the Emma top. So in this, this is a tank top, and it's a rib knit. So here is where I am at right now. This is it's a really, really neat stitch. It looks just like a rib, but it's actually kind of a half brioche stitch. And so the texture is just amazing. It's so nice, and it's even more lovely with this yarn. This is Bamboo Pop from Universal Yarns, and I'm so tangled up. My circular needle that I'm using on this is super long. It's definitely meant for shawls, but it's working great. It just gets a little tangled. So you can see the gorgeous sheen on that. It's half cotton and half bamboo. So it's a really pleasant knitting experience, and it kind of, in this color, this is Winter Squash. It is kind of a marled color, which is really cool. So yeah, so far so good. I actually had cast this on a couple different times. I went down to a US 3, which is a 3.25 millimeter needle. These are Xiaogu needles. I don't know why I have this in my stash. I may have bought these quickly for a project one time. They're not as slick as my Addies, but they're working out great. So I just stuck with them. And I'm pretty sure the pattern calls for a US size 4, but I'm using a 3, and I was going to knit the small size, but I sized up because my gauge on this is just a little off. So I did cast on several different sizes and ripped them out every time. I wasn't really sure what size was going to work, and since it's a top down, or it's a bottom up, it's not as easy to fit as a top down. So I just kind of went with what I thought, the width that I thought would be right for a top. I'm fingers crossed this works out. I think it will. Hopefully it doesn't, the width doesn't stretch too much when I block it, but at the same time, I can also account for that when I'm knitting. I think I need to knit a total of about 10 inches on this per the pattern. Now I am petite, I'm actually quite short. So I probably will go a little less, but I didn't want it cropped. I wanted it to end at like my high hip. And so I'm going to knit the length that will be good for that. This is a really neat, has some really neat details. I'm going to give you a close-up here. On the edge right here, this right here is going to be a little slit in the side seam, and so there's these really cool kind of like double increases right here. Mine isn't perfect, but what I did is if you go to her Instagram account, she has story highlights that actually show step-by-step how to do these double increases. Incredibly helpful. And then right here, these are stitches that are going to be for the selvage. So as you can see, this last rib, this little row or this column right here that I am holding, this will go into the selvage. So it's going to be a really clean finish once it's stitched together. So I should point out that this is going to be the front, and then the back will be knit separately, and then they're seamed together. I'm pretty sure that's how it is. But I don't always read completely through the pattern, so sometimes it's a little bit of a mystery. But this is the Emma top. I believe it's the Emma top number 2. I really like it. I had mentioned last week in the episode that I have a shorts pattern cut out with this color in it, and so I kind of, I'm thinking that this will be a nice outfit for the fall, because it's still, you know, September, October, when you want to wear those autumnal colors and you're super excited about autumn, you're excited about fall. It's still way too hot here to wear any kind of sweater. So this will be nice to wear in the fall. So my next project is a one skein project, and I just want to thank you all so much for all of your comments and helpful suggestions for one skein projects. I compiled a list of all of your suggestions and actually linked to them so I can reference them in the future. So cool to see everything that you are working on. So thank you for taking the time to do that. I skeined up, or I caked up one of my yarns and set it aside for the storm shawl, because I am going to cast that on as soon as I finish this project. So I cast on the Show Off Boomerang by Klich, and I'll link it below. It is a really cool pattern. It's a pattern that you can use with any kind of yarn. So any size yarn, any thickness of yarn. This is one of my handspuns. I decided to use a handspun in this project because I have a lot of handspun in my stash, and I'd really like to use it more because I love knitting with my own handspun. So this is where I'm at so far. This is a fiber I purchased from Adelaide Cottage, maybe 2 years ago. It's called Galaxy, and it is I'm pretty sure it's a merino and seacell combo. I know it has seacell in it, so it adds a really beautiful sheen and drape. This is a 2-ply. I think it's about 227 yards. So I am using I think I'm using a size 5. I'm using a size 5, which is a 3.75 millimeter. One thing that's really neat about this pattern too is that April gives suggestions for needle sizes depending on your gauge of yarn. So she has suggestions for many different gauges of yarn. It's a really, really neat pattern. So here's where I am so far. I think it's so pretty. I'm pretty sure I spun this as a fractal gradient, so I probably split it into 2, and then 1/2 I split into, I don't know, 2, 4 sections, and then the next half I divided into 6 or 8 sections, so you get kind of this neat blendy, stripy effect. Here's the handspun. Isn't that pretty? I think you could probably see the sheen in that. It's a 2-ply. It's really, really pretty. So if you've never knit a boomerang shawl, it's very simple and fun. The way a boomerang shawl is constructed is that you don't need a lot of yarn to bind off. And so you can just keep knitting and knitting and knitting until you're almost finished with your cake, and then you can bind off and you can use almost every bit of yarn possible. And so with a series of increases and decreases, it's actually this bottom edge that I am knitting on. And so it just gets, it kind of lends itself to a really neat asymmetrical shawl. It's not very deep. And I intend this to probably go into my gift knitting. It's a really beautiful kind of purple gray lavender color. So it's really going great so far. It's always a treat to knit with Handspun. I don't know why I don't do it more often. So yeah, so far this is a really great pattern. I've really been enjoying it. So I did finish my Handspun project, my giant Handspun project. Look at how big this is. This turned out absolutely massive. It's so huge. I cannot even believe it. This is my crazy Rolag spin that I've been showing you. This is the first and only project I've spun on my electric eel wheel, and it is so massive. It turned out absolutely huge. This was more yarn I ever expected to be in the skein. It is so much yarn. So I'm trying to keep notes on these tags this year. That was kind of one of my New Year's resolutions, which I haven't kept up with everything, but I did write a couple of notes on this. This whole skein weighs 174 grams, and I estimated it to be about 882 yards, which is so much yarn. It is about I would say a fingering to sport weight, and so it's gonna be great. I'm definitely going to knit a shawl with this. It's massive, this skein of yarn, and so let me give you a close-up because there's so many interesting bits in this yarn. So as you can see, here's some of my confetti Rolags with that white polwarth and then the scraps of yarn. That ended up being the thickest yarn, I guess, the thickest part of it, but it's because the polwarth is so fine, it's so fluffy, it really folds up. And then all of these were different Rolags, mostly merino. There's some angelina in it to give it some sparkle, and then there's also a little bit of bamboo top in there as well, which again just adds a really smooth, gorgeous texture. But there's so many different colors in here. So pretty. So I was very happy to get this done, and it took me hours to ply this, as you probably expect. I didn't even have a full bobbin on my electric eel wheel, which is, wow, those bobbins can hold a ton of yarn, which is really great. But I have never plied this much yarn in one sitting. It was, I believe it was a Sunday afternoon. I had a couple of free hours in the afternoon, and I thought, well, I'll just go ahead and ply this up on the electric eel, and it took me a long time. A really long time, but it plied great on the electric eel. I had the speed all the way up, so the plying went by quickly. And let me show you what happened at the very end though. So I don't really know if this was user error or I don't know what happened. I think it's just that I was plying so much, maybe for so long, that the brake band on my wheel completely broke into. It just completely wore through. And this brake band is, it's like a thick cotton cord. So it shouldn't be too difficult to replace, but I had maybe 12 inches left of yarn, and to ply together, and it just wouldn't take up on the wheel. And finally, you know, looking at the brake band, I couldn't even believe it that it was split into two. So I haven't spun anymore on my electric eel wheel since I finished that project because I need to replace this brake band. I actually moved my Kromsky Minstrel up to my bedroom instead of having it in the living room because I am a little concerned that my son will play with it too much and break it. So it's moved up to my bedroom, and I've been spinning about a half hour every day on it. And so hopefully I'll have that project to share with you next time or the next episode after that. I wanted to share with you the new Lazy Kate that I purchased from Dreaming Robots to accompany the bobbins from my electric eel wheel. The wheel or the bobbins are very huge, and they don't fit my Kromsky Lazy Kate at all. And so I purchased this Lazy Kate, and it's really, really neat. It comes with 3 of these pieces that are kind of like puzzle pieces. And I love how everything is very compact. Everything is structured in such a way that you can keep all of your electric eel accessories and everything together in the wheel itself in just a little tote. It's really nice. They just kind of set in each other like this. And so you can, in my situation, I was just doing a 2-ply, so I just had 2 pieces together. But even if you wanted to do a 3-ply, you have 3 pieces. So you just fit these together and lay them flat. These little slots right here these are for your tension, and they have little elastic cords that work as the tension for your bobbins. I found that I really didn't need those. I started off by using them, but I just didn't really need them. And then you have these rods that come in your Lazy Kate set, and what you can do, one side is threaded, and then they just screw right into the base like this. So this thicker rod is good for cakes of yarn. So you can actually cake up some yarn and set it here and actually knit straight from this, which I think is really cool for yarn management, especially if you had maybe 2 cakes of yarn. You could put those and like marl them together. I thought that was a really interesting idea. But this actually just comes right off, and then you have this thinner shaft, I guess, that this is for bobbins. And then your bobbin slips right on, and then they have these really cool kind of rubber O-rings that once you put your bobbin on, you just slip this little rubber O-ring on, and it fits right on top, and then your bobbin doesn't come off. If you're plying very quickly, you know, maybe you've had that happen sometimes where your bobbin will want to just pop off as you are plying very quickly. So this is just such a cool Lazy Kate for all different kinds of situations. I could see if you wanted to warp your loom from this, if you needed somewhere to put bobbins, this would be a really great Lazy Kate for that. There's just a lot of different uses for it, and the neat thing is it's very affordable, and then everything just stacks together and it's very compact. I had everything fit into this small plastic bag, and it's ready for storage. So I plan on repairing my electric eel wheel this week. I'm going to do a little research and see what's the best material for a brake band for this wheel. I do have some crochet cotton. It's a little bit thinner than what is already on here. I actually also have some 100% cotton that it's a worsted weight that I normally will knit dishcloths with, or I've actually used to weave dishcloths on my smaller Kromsky Presto loom, and so I could also use that. It's very comparable to this brake band. I could also try some hemp or something like that. So just do a little experimenting because I love this little wheel. It's great to spin with, and I've really been enjoying it. So I definitely need to get it repaired. So in other news, I've just been incredibly busy the beginning part of this month. I've been packing, I've actually been dyeing and packing all of your clubs, and so those are out the door. So thank you so much if you ordered a June club pre-order. It will be on its way to you very, very soon, and the July club pre-orders are in the shop right now. So I need to get going and start dyeing for my next update, which is next Friday, the 18th of June, I believe. And I have all of my yarn soaking and ready to dye. And when I went to go dye my yarn, my little scale just broke. It didn't work anymore. I changed batteries, everything. How I dye my yarn, I don't measure with teaspoons. I actually use a scale. And so it's very precise. All of my color recipes are repeatable. It's just, I've found that it's the most accurate way for me to dye repeatable colorways. And so I'm a little lost without a scale. I should have one coming in today, so I'll be dyeing yarn like crazy, trying to get it ready in time for the update. But the cool thing is that I did come up with a new colorway. I'm going to be calling it Scallop. You'll see it next week on the shop update preview. But I actually used I think I used a half teaspoon maybe for that, and to come up with a color recipe. It's a new tonal. It's very, very pretty. And so there is an upside to that. And I think what I'll do when I do get my scale is use the teaspoon to actually weigh the dye so I can write it down in grams and have it very accurate. But it was, you know, sometimes those things happen. You have to think outside the box and make lemonade out of lemons, if you will. So it was kind of fun, and that's what I'm going to be doing today, is dyeing up a ton of yarn. I'm very excited. But other than that, that's it for this week. Thank you so much for joining me. If you liked this episode, I'd love if you give it a thumbs up. I will see you next week with another episode. I hope you are doing so well where you are. Thank you so much for spending a little time out of your day with me. I hope you're really enjoying all of your crafting, and I hope you have an awesome day. Bye.